This is James Woodcock, owner of Yamaha Personal Keyboard Owner, and this is YPKO podcast number 9, available at www.ypko.co.uk. Before we start our interview, here are a few samples from the new Tony Ross CD, available from the Yamaha Club. To find out more information about the Tony Ross CD and the USB stick, which you can also buy separately, visit the Yamaha Club website or www.ypko.co.uk. Now let's begin the interview. Hello, today on the phone with me I have with me one of the many superb Yamaha demonstrators from around the world, who indeed travels around the world presenting the latest Yamaha keyboards and digital pianos. Introducing Peter Baartmans. Welcome to the podcast, Peter.
Yes, thank you very much.
To start with, maybe you could tell us a little about yourself, how you became interested in playing and then how you became a demonstrator for Yamaha.
Well, yes, it's maybe a classical story. I started making music when I was 6 years old, which is some time ago now. I participated in Yamaha's Electron Festival in 1980, and I got through to the European final. And after that, the importer at that time, in Holland, we had an importer for Yamaha products, asked me to become their demonstrator, and that was 1980. And from 1985, I have been doing presentations and demonstrations for Yamaha all over Europe, and from 1989 all over the world.
So how did you first get into music? Who were your inspirations?
Well, it's a thing that I really don't remember. It seems that I just was listening to the radio when I was a very small child, and when I was very young. At that time, we had these old radios, these radios with valves, and they had these big buttons. And at that time, it seems I was just putting my fingers on these big buttons and pretending I was playing some piano or keyboard. So I just did it, and I don't know why, but it just happened. And then I just got an old accordion as a birthday present. And after a few weeks after getting this accordion, I could already play some tunes with accompaniment with these basses, the basses on the left side of the accordion. And my father said, well, it sounds all not so bad, but if you want to make music, you should really learn it properly. So he sent me to a state music school in the town where I was born, and I just started to take music lessons on organ at the time, church organ, and piano. So it just happened. And of course, later on, I was inspired by many people, by organ players, by arrangers, by composers, and so I am inspired by many people. And of course, I already play music now for about 41 years, so that's quite some time.
Indeed it is.
Yes, it is, yes.
If there is one thing that you would recommend to anyone who is currently learning the piano, what would you suggest?
Well, two things, I think. First of all, the touch of the piano, of course, is very important, meaning that nowadays you have these light-weighted keyboards, you have the semi-light-weighted keyboards, you have digital pianos, you have acoustic pianos, but it is very important to have a good touch of the keyboard. Of course, the real piano and the real grand piano, they have, of course, the perfect touch because it is real. And if you want to be a serious piano player, you should, I think, have for example, Clavinova, which has the same touch as on a piano. And on our Clavinova range, it's just all CLP and CVP products. So that is, if you really are, or if you really want to learn piano seriously, which does not mean that if you have a somehow lighter touch, like on our DGX models or whatever, that you cannot enjoy piano playing. That is something else. So still, I think that the most important thing is if you are serious, want to learn piano, the touch is very, very important. And we have it, as I said, in CLP and CVP. And the second thing is the sound should be okay. I mean, if you start playing on your instrument and you don't like the sound, it will not be motivating. So the sound should be okay as well, because it must be inspiring to play your instrument. And of course, you don't have to have the biggest and the most expensive piano, grand piano, Clavinova or whatever to start with, but you should be pleased with the sound. And these are the most important things. The sound should inspire you and the touch should be as on a real piano.
So you have travelled all over the world, but how do you demonstrate to people who can have very different tastes worldwide due to the different cultures?
Yeah, well, the thing is that, of course, I think everybody nowadays has heard of the word globalization. So it means that people in China, people in South Africa, people in Norway, people in Australia, people in Singapore, they all know for example, famous pop artists like Michael Jackson or the Beatles or Elvis or whatever. So generally, people who are interested in music, they know all these pop artists or maybe also famous singers like Frank Sinatra or whatever. So that's not the big problem. So the problem is not the international music by pop stars and great artists, because they are known all over the world. Of course, countries like Arabia, like China, Japan, India, they have their native music, and I don't know so much about them. Sometimes, for example, for 2 weeks I was in China, and they asked me to play 2 Chinese songs, and I just made 2 MIDI files, and they worked out very, very well. But of course, you do not have all these native sounds that you need for this music. But nowadays, our top instruments like S900, Tyros 2, the top CVP models, they offer you so many sounds. So by sometimes editing these sounds, by sometimes changing the scale tuning, which is possible on these instruments, you can achieve these kind of native music. That's no problem at all. But of course, our instruments are mostly focused on Western and popular music. So this is also what they asked me to promote, their instruments. And their instruments are produced in the same way all over the world, but with some tricks. And if you have an original audio file of an Indian song or a Chinese song, you can make them very, very well by a MIDI file. Not all, because some of them are, of course, very, very specific, but until now it was no problem to do that.
You have been demonstrating here in the United Kingdom recently with James Sargent as part of the Autumn Tour 2007, but what other countries have you been to lately? You've just mentioned China, but where else?
Oh, this year was very, very busy because I have been presenting the newest CVPs all over the world. So before China, I was in, let me think, it was Australia, I was in Mexico and Brazil, I was in Singapore, I was in Taiwan, the Philippines, Japan, North America, and South Africa. And that's about it, I think.
And I believe all of this was in quite a short time as well.
Well, yeah, well, not all, but the last 2 months I have been flying a lot. Yes, I have been flying a lot, but that's no problem. I mean, it is so nice to present the products and because they are great, and it is very interesting. Now, although, as you said, sometimes their native music is a little bit different, but how well these instruments are accepted by everybody all over the world, and they just love it. And of course, especially CVP, everybody knows the piano as an instrument. And of course, the main thing of a CVP is, of course, main thing, one of the most important things is, of course, the digital piano of the CVP products. So, yeah, it was a very, very nice time. And it is so nice to present products which are really, really good. And the people are knocked out by the sounds, by the styles, by the content, and of course they like me playing it. So, well, it has been going very, very well. But it's also nice that this big tour is over now. So I'm really enjoying the tour with James, and it's a very, very nice tour. And also here, the people accept the instruments very well. So it's all just fine at the moment. Yeah.
As a classical pianist, how do you find working also with keyboards?
Well, I think that is one of the things that I really always wanted to do and which I every day enjoy again. I'm getting also a little bit older now. I mean, I do Yamaha demonstrations for more than 25 years. And things are changing. I think maybe 25 years or 20 or 15 years ago, there still were many pure classical people who, purists, I think you call them, eh? Yeah, and they were really, it's not good, and it's digital, and it's not real acoustic. But it's changing, because, first of all, the piano sound, the touch, everything is really very, very, very close to an acoustic piano. Of course, it's still something different, but it's very close to it. And it's a real enjoyment to play a digital piano nowadays. Now, also, you have the possibility to work with other sounds, so you can be very, very creative. Sometimes, I make some comparisons with cars, and it's like now, this time, hybrid cars are very well accepted because the environment is changing. We need alternative ways, like battery-powered cars, to save the environment. But 20 years ago, these hybrid cars, everybody laughed at it. Because at that time we were not so aware maybe of the environment changing. So kind of this way it's also changing in our musical instruments or in the people who are working with these musical instruments. So even the classical people, the really pure classical people, if they hear an acoustic piano now or a digital piano, and if they play it, if they really take time to play it, they must admit that it's just a fantastic instrument as well. Which it wasn't 25 years ago. I mean, the first Clavinovas didn't have either sampling for the piano sound, it was an FM piano sound, and that was a big difference. But many people, of these classic people, when they hear this piano sound, they say, digital piano, it doesn't even come close to an acoustic piano. And they were right at that time. Of course, some of them never listened to the new products since then, so maybe they have still the same feeling. But if a serious and a creative musician hears a digital piano nowadays, I think everybody will say, well, this is absolutely fantastic. And of course, our goal, or it's nobody's goal, to have a CVP or a CLP or a digital piano during a concert in the Royal Albert Hall of Chopin or some Russian composer's piano concerto. That is not the goal, and this is also a completely different world. But just as a musical instrument, I think nowadays it's accepted by everybody.
Yamaha have recently released the new Clavinova CVP 400 series, but what does it add from the previous 300 range?
So, the 300 series is based on Tyros 1 for the extra voices, and the 400 series is based on Tyros 2 for all the extra voices, which means that the 400 series include these fantastic super articulation sounds, the guitar, the saxophone, the trumpet, which are fantastic. And that is the main difference of these two series. And of course also the 400, the new piano sound, is fantastic.
Is there anything you would like to say to the listeners of the YPKO podcast before we go?
Well, yes, maybe one thing that is that I hope that everybody who has a musical instrument, especially for the Yamaha musical instrument, will enjoy it every day as much as I do, because that's the most important thing of all. You should enjoy making music on your instrument. And whether you do it on a very, very small portable keyboard or on Tyros 2 or on CVP, you should enjoy it. And it's not a matter of how good you play or the level of playing, it's just a matter of how much you enjoy it. And I hope everybody will enjoy his Yamaha instrument as much as I do every day.
Thank you very much for your time, Peter, and hopefully we will speak to you again in the future.
Well, looking forward to that, and maybe some of the listeners I will meet sometime during one of my UK tours. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter. If you are a Yamaha Tyros 2 owner, you'll be pleased to know there's even more new styles on the Internet Direct Connection service. And here are a few examples of those newest styles.